I officially call to order the South Burlington Steering Committee meeting at 7 p.m. on Monday, November 9th, 2020. Good evening, you all. We haven't been together in a long time, either this way or in person. So the first item is the agenda review. Are there any additions, deletions, or changes in order of agenda items? Okay, seeing or hearing none, we'll move on to the next item 4, approve the minutes from July 20, 2020.
You skipped item 3, really.
Pardon me?
You skipped item 3.
Oh, I'm sorry. I always do that, don't I? Comments and questions from the public not related to the agenda. Are there any? Okay, but I still need to ask, so thank you, Tom. Moving on then, approval of the minutes from July 20th. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor, signify with a thumbs up, I guess. We don't call a roll. Okay. And,
I'll say aye.
And Elizabeth, you're voting yes as well?
I am.
Okay. So the minutes have been approved unanimously. So item 5 then is closing out FY 2020, and we're going to get the financial updates from both and have a council and board discussion regarding FY 22 budget priorities. I don't know who wants to go first. It's either Tom or David, so.
Amity Dent is join us momentarily, so.
Pardon me?
Amity Dent is going to join
okay.
momentarily, so if City can go, I'll let her know we're on.
Okay, great. So Tom Hubbard?
Okay, thanks, Helen. Good to see everyone. I shared with the council just a while back, we kind of consider ourselves fortunate to finish in the black for FY 20. Our records show us with not a huge balance, but about $33,000 to the good. The auditors are currently working on our audit for FY 20. And with that still going on, we kind of feel like we're in 3 different fiscal years right now, which I'm sure your finance team feels the same way. But we'll begin with FY 20 and take a little bit more of a look at that. Given the challenges of the pandemic that we had, several major factors for us really contributed to the budget coming in within balance. And like I said, even though small, we're grateful to finish the year with a balanced budget. And the first thing that we did as soon as we found ourselves really understanding what was going on, about mid-March, we put a budget freeze into effect. And that lasted throughout the rest of that fiscal year. In fact, it's still in effect. That was the first thing that we did. The second thing that really worked to our advantage is that going into the final quarter of FY 20, our local options taxes were $325,000 at the end of 3 quarters, ahead of where they were the previous year and ahead of what our projection was for the current fiscal year. We knew that the 4th quarter was going to be difficult, and it was. It really presented a shortfall for us. But there was enough with the extra money in the first 3 quarters to give us just a slight positive in our local options tax collections for FY 20. So that was a huge piece for us. In fiscal year 20, the local options taxes were projected at $3.7 million. We came in just ahead of that. And the third thing that we did that was a major factor for us in balancing the budget was furloughing as many as 44 of our employees for much of that final quarter of the year. These 3 factors alone really prevented what could have been somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million shortfall in our budget. So again, we're grateful. Things came together, and I think we're fortunate in terms of where we ended up fiscal year 20. In terms of the current fiscal year, we have several mitigation factors that remain in place with a number of unknowns still ahead of us. We continue to have the budget freeze in effect. Only essential purchases necessary.
Hey, do you guys want to play Minecraft?
are
Yeah, I want to play
being-
Minecraft. Hello?
Did somebody have
That
a
call
question?
3, I think you're in the wrong.
Hello?
Can we mute the callers?
Yeah,
Who is
I'm
the-
on Minecraft.
Kevin, can you mute
Yeah, hello?
call 3?
Yeah, I want to play Minecraft, bro.
Well, I'm not your bro, and we're not playing Minecraft. We're having a meeting.
I think whoever whoever's
okay.
the host can just mute the individual or.
Yeah, I just want to play though. Any of you got Minecraft?
Nope.
You don't?
So can anyone mute him?
Yes, whoever's the host, if whoever's the host can,
Is that you, Kevin? Oh, he's muted. Thank you.
Okay. So for FY21, we continue to have the budget freeze in effect. There were several positions that were approved as part of the FY21 budget that have been put on hold, as well as filling any vacancies that arise during FY21 unless they're deemed essential. And then all of our capital improvement projects are also put on hold. The council did approve funding for about half of our paving budget.
You
That
guys
was
started on Minecraft,
done
bro?
on Dorset Street.
Kevin, I think you're
Dude.
going to eject him from the meeting.
Dude, I want to freaking play, dude.
So I think there's a way you can eject him from the meeting, and I think that would be appropriate. But you're the chair, Helen. Really,
Why do you
sorry.
keep
Well, I mean, I would love to eject him. I would like him to hang up.
he may not be able to hear you. That's the problem. He's talking to somebody else. I don't know. I think we've got Elizabeth on by phone. And
Well, I think that's Elizabeth.
Okay, I think he's gone.
and Amity's on by phone. Elizabeth, can you hear us still?
I can hear you. Yeah.
And Amity, can you hear us?
Yes, I am now able to get on via computer. Sorry.
Okay.
No problem. Thanks, Amity.
And I'll just let you know, Tim put a note in. Not everyone reads the chat box, but he turns his picture off, so he's able to stay with us and not.
Yeah, Amity has a similar thing. Her strength isn't great either, so she.
Yes.
Okay. All right, I'm sorry. Keep going, Tom.
Sure. So I was talking about the capital improvement projects also being on hold with the exception of the council approving about half the paving budget, which was for the work done on Dorset Street this summer. We're going to reevaluate our financial position in the spring, hopefully allowing us to make some more of those capital improvement purchases and be able to do some of those other projects. But we want to make sure that we're able to balance the budget before we go ahead with many of those. We'll receive the next allotment for the state for the local auctions tax sometime within the week. So we're anxious to see how that comes in. And that alone will determine a lot of what we may or may not be able to do within the next year.
I just want to freaking play some
Then
Minecraft.
in terms of fiscal year 22, we've had some conversations with council about budget planning, have prepared our department managers to identify the things that are essential for next year. More a matter of what they must have rather than what they need to have. And we expect decisions to be made both at the manager and the council level with that in mind. The department managers currently finalizing the CIP. They continue to work on the FY22 general fund budget. The council will begin discussing both the CIP and the general fund budgets at their meetings in December. And these will continue after the first of the year. And then tentatively, if both the council and the school board agree, the steering committee will meet on January 20th to share budgets that will be presented to the voters in March. So Helen, that's kind of a synopsis from the city standpoint.
Okay. Are there any particular questions that school board members might have at this point? Okay, seeing none. David, are you going to present or is Emily?
Yeah, Helen,
Yes.
Sure.
hold on, Helen, and.
Yes.
And we.
Oh, I'm sorry, Alex McHenry has a,
Yeah, I'm not sure the exact date that we are going to approve our budget, but it's going to be mid to late January. So having a steering committee meeting in January might not, we might not have a budget to give to the voters at that time, depending on what time of the month it is.
well, I think you have to have a budget pretty soon, close to the end of January in order to have it on the ballot. I mean, that's
Absolutely,
why.
in 2 months, but if the steering committee meets in 2 months, then we will not have a budget to discuss at that time.
Helen, do you mind if I say something? I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
Alex,
go
we
ahead.
have, we have our usuals, I don't have our entire schedule in front of us, but typically we have our first meeting in January is a regular school board meeting. And we
Yeah.
try to get pretty close to a final budget then. And then we have a special meeting scheduled for the second week in January. That's always just about the budget. And that's when we usually try to approve the budget that's going to go on the ballot. So Alex, this is the meeting on the 20th of January would be pretty typical meeting that we have with the city. So usually we do sort of approve our budget in the second week of January, around the 13th, I think it is this year.
Mhm.
And then usually about a week later, we have a meeting with the city where we sort of trade budgets. So this has been our past practice from the last several years.
Right. Thank you.
So,
So does that answer your question or concern,
does.
Alex?
yeah, it looks like the 19th at the latest of January is when we would have a budget.
It still might be hard
Yeah,
to achieve that. Yeah. So David, are you gonna?
Yeah, if Kevin or Tom, can you give me screen share option? I don't want all the controls, but just the screen share.
bro, I just wanted to play Minecraft, bro. Let me play. Like, I just wanted to freaking play, bro.
I think he's number 8.
Yeah, I've numbered your mom, kid. Freaking just let me play.
So
David, you should have it.
David, you suck.
David, you should have it now.
now, if David is the presenter, is he also in charge of turning off the Minecraft guy?
I'm doing that, Helen.
Okay, good. Thank you.
There's a bunch of them.
There must be one digit off from some exciting spot.
Can I play now? Can I freaking play now? I just want to freaking play. Bro.
David, you're muted if you're wanting to talk.
I'm not hearing anything. We're supposed to be doing something.
Yeah, I got muted. I know you're trying to work to get
No,
this.
just freaking let me play Minecraft, bro. I just want to freaking play. You guys are blue. You guys are black. You guys are freaking black. I hope
So can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, okay, I know we still got conversations in the background going on, so I'm gonna let Amity, if Amity's on. Wanted to give you a little bit of a kind of an unaudited FY20 financial position, as we said we would. one of the things is, again, noted is that during the COVID experience, obviously education was marked essential, and any furloughing or anything like that was not an option. And so we had to keep people on March to June, primarily to serve the students in the hybrid function, or fully remote, I should say, including nutritional services to all of our families. So we obviously have endured some COVID expenses on the other end, and I'm going to let Amity just talk through kind of where we are today with again our unaudited financial position.
Black people die. You can't.
Thanks, David.
Anyway, bro.
So this picture that you're looking at currently shows both our general fund and special revenue funds combined. Our general fund in the end of, or the beginning of the 2020 fiscal year, or the end of FY19, did end with a deficit, but when you combine the two funds together, there was a small positive fund balance of 102,456. And we're showing this today combined because of the COVID expenditures. Things would look really askewed if we were reporting as one fund, the general fund, and then our special revenues, because the expenditures for our COVID expenses have been generally from the general fund. However, the revenue has to come into the special revenue fund. So there's some audit activity that will need to take place. So in order to keep this as clear as possible, I combine the two funds rather than showing them separately, but this would be our total financial picture, irregardless if I had it separated or together. So what this picture shows is that between the two funds, we started our fiscal year of 2020 with 102 positive fund balance. General fund was in a deficit. The special revenue fund was in a positive, and it nets out to be a positive. Then we had a budget for new revenues, which when I say new revenues, that's any new revenue that we had that we were bringing in fiscal year 20 budgeted. And then our expenditures budgeted at the 51.746533. Those were our FY20 budget expenditures, and the difference showing of 169,000.
Arby's task force will rise again. Arby's task force will rise again. Arby's task force
Sorry,
will
that's very
rise again.
distracting.
Arby's task force
The
will rise again.
169,000 was a carryover amount that was revenue brought in from fiscal year 2018 to use in fiscal year 2020. So that's why we don't count that as a new revenue, because it was already revenue that we had already received in year 18. So our actual column is down in the center. Our revenues came in at 52.4 million, which was above our budget by 835,000. That does include a booked revenue for COVID funds that we still haven't actually received, but are anticipating receiving for our FY20 expenditures. And then our FY20 expenditures of 51.8 million are over budget by the 117,000, and that's strictly due to COVID related expenditures. So we actually did fairly well because we had frozen our budget prior to the COVID situation taking place. So our ending fund balance for fiscal year 20 unaudited
110 and never again. Get rid of them all. They control immediately or heavily disproportionately
and we have
represented.
to subtract what we had already budgeted as a carryover revenue from our fiscal year 18. And so currently our unaudited FY22 available budget fund balance would be about $482,000. That's what this picture is showing, giving you an idea of where we believe we'll be at very close to after on audit.
Thanks, Amity.
Thank you.
Can I just ask or just make a comment? Megan sent a chat. Is it unacceptable that we lock the meeting to further participants? And I think this Minecraft crowd is rather disruptive. So I would be inclined to just lock it out, and understanding that that may lock out some of the public, but I think we need to be able to hear each other. Is that acceptable to other people?
I
Elizabeth,
agree.
does that work for you? Again, I'm seeing, okay. So Kevin, can you just lock out everyone?
Channeling, oh no. Yes, sir. Channeling, I want to take.
Doing my best.
Okay, but yeah, I mean, I think you can lock it as if we were having an executive
No,
session.
you can't.
Oh,
I
you
can't.
can't? Oh,
No.
I have to do it when they come on.
all right. Okay, I'm sorry. Keep going, David.
Yeah, so this again, Amity gave you an overview of where we are again with our ending balance. As we move down, I want to just share with you a little bit about where we are with some of our budget priorities. Again, some of you are
Shut it down, Lagoya, no. Shut it down.
quite
Shut it
familiar
down.
with our ends. Dispositions for lifelong learning, right? Academic proficiency, you know these. These are the tenets and what the board expects for our children as they depart our program. Personal development. Some of these are right on the, flying on the collars that keeps bumping into us. And then some priorities for this year, you know, as we look at 2021, 2022 focus, we've got, and I wanted to put this kind of in this visual form. I'm going to
You
share
can't
this
stop me, man. I will
with,
planet if you want.
community too, but you know, our main area obviously is these three tenets, you know, safe and healthy schools, social, emotional, and academic proficiency on those three blocks. Obviously, as you know, particularly with COVID, we needed to make sure kids felt safe, parents and guardians felt safe for kids to come into school. The environment needs to be safe in order for children and children to learn and staff to teach. Social and emotional health is critically important too, because if there's things in the way of learning, then we won't get to the academic proficiency. And I put this visual model, obviously it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and you know, it's the same thing. You got to take care of those basic functionings. More, you know, engaged activities. So again, some visuals here on what we're going to be working on. As we look at budget priorities, again, pretty given, we look at enrollments, our current and projected student enrollments for FY22. I have to say that this past year, you know, we expected a slightly larger number of students, and that didn't happen. I'll take a look at that in just a second with you. But obviously that's an important driver in our district cost and expense. The staffing needs are directly proportional then to the programs that are in need to support the students, also based on
White power.
also based on what we're finding that we need to provide to the students. Item 3 is district staffing. Over the years, again, and this particular period from March to June and to now, you know, we have we definitely have seen some increases in work capacity as a result of COVID. We've hired on some temporary folks to help us through that with health screeners and substitutes, et cetera. But we've also, over the years, when we look at redundancy and succession, which is a big part of our work this year in this budget, is to make sure we have the needed redundancy in critical areas and continue to work on succession planning. What I mean by succession is, do we have opportunities for people within the organization to move through the organization and take on different roles and responsibilities if they wish? That's area 3. And area 4 is facility stewardship needs. We've taken our longer range plan, we've consolidated it down into a 10-year stewardship plan. And we want to make sure that we're allocating funds to ensure the schools can function in FY 2022. We want to determine the most appropriate avenue to do that. And certainly, as many of you know, we identified some very significant needs, which led us to the capital proposed plan that did not pass. And so now we need to be looking at what are we going to do for the foreseeable future Again, the foreseeable future, most immediate, is FY 2022. And so that's where we are. And the board and administration are working now on that. We do have budget forums that are going to start. We have one, our first one would be tomorrow. Some of the same information will be shared with them, giving them an overview of enrollment and staffing, and also the reductions that were made in looking at outcomes and expectations the best that we can. We certainly have had a disruptive period, as I think most everybody has in certainly Vermont and our country, but how we continue to move forward to make sure that students are receiving what they need. And then let me just go to.
You guys are trash at this. You guys actually suck at this. You suck at operating.
So I just want to say, Kevin, I don't know if you're looking at the chat, but it looks like Brian pasted some instructions on how we might be able to lock the meeting. I don't know if you've seen those yet.
No.
So this is our enrollment. I don't go terribly into it, but we have a couple different slides. The school board has seen this, but as of October 29th, what we have for enrollment, easy probably to look at these boxes on the corners of each of the schools. So here's Rick Marcotte Central School, pre-K to 5, 395.
This
K-5.
conference will now be recorded.
And then moving down, Gertrude Chamberlin. Sorry for my slow move here. Pre-K 5, 287, K5 261. And then gotta get Orchard, sorry. Orchard, 419, K5, 396. South Burlington High School, you see where they are. And then the Tuttle is above there. District is over here. Again, pre-K to 5, K-12, tuition students, VTVLC. And compared to expected, I'll just give you that one here. Again, I can send these all to you as well. July 23rd, what we expected, and then what actually happened at Rick Marcotte. So here you can see what we expected was 398, the actual is at 373. We lost some students there. Part of our concern is not a concern, but our inquiry is to know what happened. Same thing with Gertrude E, or actually Gertrude Chamberlin, Rick Marcotte, and Orchard. And that's the high school. Sorry for the jumpiness here, it's not great. Tuttle.
So every single school had fewer students than you had anticipated.
Yeah, not, let's see, and then the expected, yes, in the ends were 42 students.
Okay.
Less.
Chamberlin, yeah.
All in all. Now, what happened with the middle school, just again, as students migrate, we had a large 8th grade class that went to the high school. You can see, right, 237 here, you see where my pointer is, 9th grade, 193. So that was an attributed number, pretty different. You can see the class sizes as they have, and 9th graders also going to the high school. That's typically where you may see some students go off to private schools, or in the COVID situation, also into some different places as well. So
Yeah,
again, this is.
I think Megan had a question, if you're.
I was
Go
just
ahead, Megan.
curious if it was any tuition students, if you were able to gauge whether the expected number of tuition students increased or decreased.
No, our tuition students actually held really strong in truth. We thought that was going to be with our budget activity or non-activity, I guess. We thought we would lose a lot more of our tuition students while we were in flux. We passed a budget on August 11th. But the tuition students stayed solid. Again, hard to know if we didn't have the COVID situation or the budget situation, what we would do We are again running with our demographer an updated enrollment piece. I hope to have that in December, which is a big part of adding into our budgeting forecast as well. Because again, this is a hard year, I think, to use this particular year as a benchmark in comparison to others, as we've looked at kind of in-migration and out-migration of grades at the school. So anyway, that's an update on the kind of where we are with those areas. And as I said, the facility needs was the last bucket that we're looking at. I don't know if there's any more questions on kind of those three priorities. Again, the board has only had a brief overview. We'll have another deeper dive here as we move forward in next board meetings with the school board.
Well, I'm just wondering where the contract negotiations are and how they factor in.
Well, as far as the budget, you know, what we need to do, dependent upon where the board is with the collective bargaining agreements, we have to set an amount that we think is appropriate to resolve negotiations. Right now, again, the board is in negotiations with all three collective bargaining groups, the teachers currently, and we have currently settled agreements with the administrators, but I don't know, either Elizabeth or Bridget can give you a little bit more if you wish, or Martin or Brian, I guess.
Yeah, I can speak to that, David. I think you knew that all the administrators took a salary freeze for this operating year. And the one area that we needed to kind of go back and resolve was the fact that the new statewide healthcare plan goes into effect in January. So that Martin and Brian are the subcommittee members who are working on that with administrators. And then the budget, which was approved by the voters in August, really indicated that what was included in the budget was the equivalent of step increases for any unresolved employee contracts or bargaining negotiations. So it was made clear at that time that anything that was settled in those outstanding contracts for this operating year would go into a carry forward if it was positive, and if it was negative, it really would have to come out of some other area. So as far as the teachers go, we did complete fact finding on the 26th of this month. So we're expecting the fact finders report probably sometime no sooner than the end of November, maybe early December. So we'll easily be, 6 months into the operating year at that point, as far as teachers go. And then I don't want to steal Martin or Brian's thunder on support staff, but they are continuing to meet with support staff and try to work toward a resolution there as well.
Thank you.
So I don't know if there's any other questions. One of the things that we'll get to later on in the agenda, when we talk with Todd and the reappraisal and the CLA calculation, obviously that's significantly in play from the school side as a result of reappraisals and the common level of appraisal. As that number goes back up closer to 100%, then that will have a pretty significant effect on the budget. So that will be a positive. However, again, it's neutral, right? It's neutral because of reappraisal. Some folks will pay more. Some obviously will pay less, and the school side obviously will see that difference. We were at 89% before, but we'll talk more about that in just a bit. Okay, let me get out of screen share here. I can do it. It's very different here. Help me out, somebody out of screen share. Turn it off, no. It's not giving me control.
You muted yourself, David.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get out of my screen share. It's not letting me get out. Oh no. Don't lock me.
Well, don't leave the meeting because you'll be locked out.
Yeah, I know. You might like that. Oh boy, why won't it let me out? Sorry, everybody, I can't get out here.
Oh, it said he left.
This is where we have to look in the waiting room that Brian said would be visible.
Yeah, I'm just
Helen,
Googling it.
just while we're waiting for David, a couple of quick things. I don't know if he mentioned specifically, but typically any positive carry forward has to go to two years ahead. And the legislature, I believe, is allowing carry forwards to be used in the next operating year. So that would be one positive thing that would offset the upcoming budget, assuming that audited result is about where Amity is projecting it now. And then the other thing is the COVID reimbursement. We've had a bit of a mixed bag there, and the nutritional services has been reimbursed fully at this point, but we have programs like our enterprise program of Schools Out that the reimbursement was at 53%. So, and we have unreimbursed expenses from last year's, from the March to June timeframe. So that's, there's a lot of caution on some of the expenses associated with COVID response and what the reimbursement will look like ultimately.
Huh. And you don't know when that'll be resolved. Is that something the legislature has to resolve?
Actually, I don't know if Martin can speak to that. I think it's generally it's sort of determining where the AOE and the process that AOE is distributing the funds, and then any additional funding that might be available.
But right now, it's just the Agency of Education that is working on determining how to disperse the funds. I mean, from what I understand, the amount of funds that the legislature gave the AOE to disperse is sufficient to meet all the requests for those funds. If it wasn't sufficient, then it would be possible that the legislature, or actually would be the Joint Fiscal Committee, because we're not meeting till January, would move some of the funds from elsewhere, but that doesn't appear necessary from what I understand.
Okay.
Yeah, I really don't know and can't speculate on what the holdup is. I think allocation, identification of key areas, how they're going to reimburse, the amount of money that's needed to reimburse. Do they have a valid information from every school or district or SU that has had the COVID expenses? We hear there's money available. We've made some, again, as you heard in the from Amity, we have made some assumptions on what we think we're going to be reimbursed, but have not seen that. The Nutrition Service Fund did get reimbursed, but we don't see that in the any sort of the cash flow carryover, right? It's part of a Fund 7 that isn't connected to the same funding mechanism. Enterprise fund is what I meant to say, really.
Okay. So is there any further discussion? It sounds as if you will be looking at a very tight budget, as will we.
Yeah, I mean, the board hasn't specifically, I mean, I can't speak for the board, and they'll be coming up with some directives, but definitely enrollment and staffing. Enrollment, if enrollment goes way down, or staffing goes, or enrollment goes way up, then, our staffing levels need to accommodate that. In addition, looking at some of the effects of COVID and what we might need to do in order to respond appropriately to serve students and ready them. And then, as I said earlier, that facility piece. So we'll be looking again at, how we want to move forward in what we know is a tough economic period of time as people try to get back on track. So we're sensitive to that. At the same time, we have a big obligation too.
Right. Well, that certainly was, I think, the understanding among the city councilors that we really wanted to be very sensitive to any tax increases and the ability or inability of the public to support higher spending and higher taxes. So we'll have to see what it looks like, but that was kind of the direction we gave the administration, is to be, there are some things that go up and you have to, they're operating costs that you can't not pay. But there's other things that we're really keeping a tight lid on.
No, I think that's helpful information for us for sure. As you know, again, as I said earlier, we have a major obligation to ready students for their next steps. We also have had a major change in education delivery from March to June into now. So that's also in play. And then we had a budget, obviously, that significantly, we made some pretty significant reductions in programming, of which we hope do not have major effect, but we know they will, and we'll have to assess where we go from here with this next budget. So it's kind of a big, complicated bucket right now. But again, as I said, we're certainly sensitive to kind of our community's view on funding and all of those things. Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments or questions or thoughts? Okay, so we'll move on to 180 Market Street progress and planned move-in schedule. Is Ilona? Has she arrived? I don't
Oh,
see
Helen,
her.
I'll take that.
Okay. Thank you.
The project continues reasonably on schedule. We're still looking at a late June occupancy date. That could slip for a variety of reasons, but right now we're looking to be pretty well on schedule for the end of June. Currently, big projects that we're involved in beyond just the original design phase are the audiovisual, which is a big component of the cost for the technology side of the building. Also, the solar array, we're trying to maximize the amount of solar that we're going to get off of the rooftop solar. And we've split what was a combined rooftop solar and battery system to do the rooftop solar immediately, or at this point in time, because the roof is under construction. And then spend some time looking at the best battery solution. Our goal is to run the building off of our own power as best we can, and to cut down on any demand, peak demand charges that we would get from GMP for the balance of the power that we need. We're also looking at the furniture bids coming in shortly for the library and also for the rest of the building. The building is reasonably closed in, but should be completely closed in by December 1st. A lot of work is being done inside that you obviously can't see from the street. A lot of room partitions going in, sheetrock starting to go in, mechanicals and so on. So things are moving along pretty well. And like I say, we still hope to hit that late June occupancy date.
Any questions?
Oh, I'm sorry, Helen.
Yeah. No, go ahead. Are there any questions or comments?
Yeah, I just
Yes,
want to say,
Bridget.
Mm.
Oh, Bridget, and then I guess Tom.
I just wanted to mention, we've heard from a few other parents and I've experienced it myself. I just don't know what the idea is for the future of traffic control where School Street meets Market Street. It's really difficult on days when all the parking spaces along Market Street are full to see traffic coming from the east as you're pulling out of that driveway out of, well, it's not a driveway anymore, it's a street off of School Street onto Market Street. And a lot of people have commented that it's just very treacherous trying to get out of there. I don't know if there's a thought behind putting potentially a yellow, flashing light or some kind of something to let drivers on Market Street know that they need to slow down, especially at drop off and pickup time, because there's just no way for people to see them coming. And I'm just concerned that at some stage there's going to be an accident there just because you can't see traffic. And there's a lot of pressure to get off of School Street because everyone's piled up behind you trying to get out of there. So it's just a concern that's sort of arisen as people have started to use that street. But yeah, I don't know if there was any thought behind that.
Do we need to suspend some parking spots?
Well, that would probably be the likely thing to do, I think, Tim. The first 2 or 3 to the east of where the street joins Market Street to allow better visuals around that, down to the east, as Bridget points out. That might be something we could do reasonably immediately. The light, we had not planned for a blinking yellow light there or any traffic lights on Market Street, not even at the intersection of Garden and Market. But I'll see what we can do to block off those parking spots to allow for a better visual.
Yeah, I think any parking spots would be helpful. And it may be that for a period of time, once things are settled down a little bit at 180 Market Street before Snyder-Braverman really picks up, there may not be as much in terms of parking on that street. Right now, it feels like a lot of contractors that are parked there in their trucks. And so the trucks in particular are kind of hard to see around. So maybe it won't be such a problem after a while, but yeah, anything that could be done with those first couple of parking spots, even if it's just a temporary thing, would be pretty helpful, I think.
Great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'll look into that right away, Bridget.
Thanks.
David?
yeah, I do want to, put a positive plug in there. Justin Rabbit, who has been working hard with Gary Marcus almost on a regular basis, and they have kind of their early morning meetings, and they have resolved a lot of issues, of which some of what Bridget just talked about, that northeast corner of Market Street, Market and School Street has been that tight turn. And so Justin has his folks putting a watch on that to see if that ought to change, and all the other concerns, but been very responsive. Engelberth and their project management have been, very responsive and helpful. And so we really do appreciate that too. It's definitely transformed over the years, last couple of years. But again, we are concerned as always about driver decision making, and I think Bridget points out that well, is that we've got some people that are going faster than they should. And there's, as you know, when you're driving through parked car areas around a school, most of us, drive with extreme caution, and that's not always what happens with some people just passing through, and it creates major scares. So we're certainly concerned about it. Thank you, Helen.
Okay, great. Any other comments or questions? All righty, let's move on to item 7, the airport, the FAA grant award update for Gertrude Chamberlin School.
Yeah, so again, another, well, now we're in a success story with all of the grants. We did get the grants, and we've got a timeline. I could pull it up, but I think I'm going to save you the anxiety of my screen sharing. It doesn't seem to be working so well on the.
David, I can reconnect you again.
Okay.
You want to share?
Yeah, I just share the timeline, and the school board members have the timeline, but the council might like it.
Coming up. Okay, you got it.
Everybody getting dizzy? So this is the overall plan. Let me try to reduce this a little bit. And go up a little bit here. So this is just the timeline of the building. And so those of you who are unaware, we received the FAA grant to soundproof Chamberlin Elementary School. And so as a result of the grant funds, it will then provide inside ventilation, both heat and air conditioning, to create an environment where windows do not have to be open. And it's throughout pretty much the entire building, with the exceptions of a few interior spaces that are already, either don't have the windows or, fully soundproofed. So what this does is it has, design, obviously you can see where we are with design. And then the bidding process when it will start in January, and then construction here will start in March. And actually tomorrow they have some engineers on site just to be looking at the electrical components. So that's construction. And then you can see the end date is September 1. Obviously that will be the end date, and they have a few other things that they need to close the process out by September 30th. All of this, of course, has to be done in the manner in which it does not disrupt school. So that's obviously the challenge anytime you do something in a school building, and anytime you do something in a school building in a COVID-related experience. So we have some challenges there, but that's all part of the process, and people are all aware. So that's where I'm at.
Great.
So again, a little bit of a timeline on Gertrude Chamberlin. It's about $4.1 million, I believe. I think, is that right, Emily? Do you know off the top of your head, the grant award?
I have not seen that grant award.
So it's just, it's right around 4 million, or just a tad under on that grant amount.
With
again,
no
the airport,
local match required.
there is no local match. The airport, again, has been helpful. I mean, it's been a tough process, just trying to figure out how to move through it. But I do want to give a shout out the airport, Gene Richards and Nick Longo, as well as Gary, doing a majority of that work as of late for us. We have a positive outcome. So again, just wanted to share that with you.
Great. Tim Barrett, you had a question?
Yeah, quick question. David, what kind of discovery process is needed for what you might find if they need to break into walls and ceilings and stuff like that? Are you confident that there's not going to be an issue with materials that need any kind of mitigation or something like that? Or?
Yeah, the type of unit that they're doing obviously doesn't require a major amount of that work. So the units that they're putting in do not require a lot of moving or any of that. But again, anytime we do touch things, again, that's part of the cost estimating that's in there too, is they do need to check anytime they put a drill into a wall or anything of that nature. So that will be part of it. Mm-hmm.
Will this also improve ventilation for COVID conditions?
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. And what we have done to date is, as a district, we've changed filters and upgraded the filters to Merck filters, and we have blue light filtration and standalone devices in every classroom in the district that has been, very significant. So we have a layered approach around COVID. But to your point, the new system comes at a great time. Actually, we do have good boilers, but they're older boilers at Chamberlin. There are 2 units. They have one that is a lead boiler and one that's a lag boiler, and these units will make it so that those boilers do not have to supply heat to those rooms or air conditioning. So it does provide us with some pretty significant flexibility on a going forward basis. We still will have to heat in some rooms, but very, very few. And obviously the unit that we'll put in as a replacement to those two big units will be much smaller and a lot less expensive.
Great, thank you. Moving on to status of the reappraisal and the CLA calculation process, and that's Todd LeBlanc. Welcome.
Hello, everybody hear me?
We can.
That's good. Reappraisal is back underway. We have inspections for the residential properties that had remained undone are back in process. There's a gentleman by the name of Daryl Woody who has been doing the inspections. So far, I've heard no comments back in a negative way. I've had a couple people who have been concerned about letting anybody into their house, and I simply told them you don't need to. I sent them a form that we usually use for if you want a revaluation of your property. It asks about your physical attributes, bedrooms, bathrooms, finished basements, fireplaces, stuff like that. They send it back, so it's been really good so far. Blaine Bolin, who's the project manager for Tyler Tech, is on, I believe, with us. I see his name anyway. I don't know if he has anything to add or wants to add anything. I don't see him clicking his mic, so I'm gonna guess no. So the process of getting inspections back on track should keep us on task to have unofficial values in January. Once all the inspections will be done, they will take and start evaluating the market, the sales and whatnot. They'll do the analysis to come up with the new values. And then January, we will send them probably out in bulk matter, and everybody can see them, and then have the ability to meet with somebody remotely, most likely, from Tyler Tech to review their property attributes to see if there's any discrepancies. That's not really the time to argue value. We just try to get things straight at that time. And then come May, every late May, we'll send out the official values, and then that'll begin an official grievance period like we have every year.
Okay. Any questions for Todd?
Now, this is Blaine Bolden with Tyler Technologies. I was having some issues with the audio on the computer, so I was on my phone. So can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. All I guess I would like to contribute, if I may, is I'll just kind of reiterate some of what Todd said. We do have Daryl Woody up there. Daryl has completed 253 inspections to date. So add that to what we've already inspected, and we're about 85% done with the data collection. We had a gentleman named David Boast, who I believe finished all the commercial properties, and a lady named Mariah Brushway, who was able to remote in to South Burlington, and she data entered those properties. So we're about 62% complete with the data entry portion of all of this. So once the residentials are completed, we'll get that information to this Mariah Brushway, and she'll data enter that information as well.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
We also have Blaine is able to log in remotely, as well as the commercial appraiser, and I'm drawing a blank on his name right now. They're able to remove. Say it again, Blaine.
His name's John Valente.
John, yeah, I forgot his name. They're able to work remotely with our system to continue the process, even though they're not physically here.
Good. Well, that sure helps with COVID, doesn't it? Okay.
I think is important around that, as I said in our budget piece, is that, as you know, the common level appraisal has and reappraisal, common level appraisal has a pretty significant effect on the school side, Helen.
Yes.
And so we do know, I mean, we're, again, and folks have been helpful giving us kind of where we're at, but we have sought out, both from Todd and his group, as well as folks in Property Valuation Review Director, which is, I think, Christy Wright. And so they provided us some additional information around what we can expect for the CLA calculation. And what they're saying to us is that we should expect somewhere near 100% with only minor variations. Remember, this is set just on kind of the reappraisal process. In some cases, what has been reported to us by our own Brad James at the Agency of Education has said that some towns that undergo reappraisals, the CLA will come out over 100%, but there are times when it's not. This year, this is quoting Brad James, 11 out of the 15 communities that did reappraisal, 11 out of the 15 came out over 100%, but St. Johnsbury came in at 97.3. Last year, 13 out of 22 communities came in over 100%, with the most urban town being Middlebury that came in at 103. So again, a little for us on the school side, looking at, that particular calculator that's important for us to pay attention to on the school side as it sets that tax rate. So again, I think between what Todd shared and kind of the update and reappraisal, and then what we believe we're going to have is going to be near that 100%. And so again, just wanted to update the steering committee on that.
And that doesn't affect the rate until 2023, correct? Is that when?
This would be for the 2022 budget. This would be for the 2022 budget. So we're in 21.
Oh, okay.
This will be the budget that we're working
for
on
next year
now for 2022.
Okay.
Yeah.
Todd? And then someone else wanted to.
Just to back up what David said, our last reassessment in 2006, the resulting CLA was 103, and the next year was 101.
Okay. So it balances out. Megan has a question?
Yeah,
or
let's
comment?
hope. Let's hope. I did read in the paper that property values went up 23% this year in the state. Is that something that would perhaps, I don't know, mean that we would do a reassessment much sooner in the future? I mean, 23% is a huge jump in 1 year.
It is a huge jump. There's several factors. Inventory is so low, they can't build properties fast enough. And then you've got people moving in to Vermont from the bigger cities. They come in with cash. They can pay more than the asking price. That's happening a lot in most every sale. Is going into a bidding war. Days on the market are sometimes less than one. So the values right now are high. We don't really know the impact of how long they're going to stay high. That's just an unknown. But that will affect where our property values end up for the reappraisal results. As the property values get higher, the tax rate will obviously get lower accordingly. And then the higher they end up, the lower the tax rate will be.
Tim Barrett.
So that begs the next question, Todd, which is commercial going to dump on residential again?
That's a really tough question overall. Some commercial properties are doing well, some aren't. You hear a lot of complaining about, my business is just suffering. And we don't assess businesses, we assess the property. So the impact of the property is unknown, and because we use sales to determine that, in a case like right now, if the sales that are coming through are higher or even or lower, it's something we will analyze and figure out for the new numbers. But the people that are, hanging their hat on, the businesses are suffering, it's not the businesses we're dealing with. Rental properties, for one, which are considered commercial, are in the same boat as houses right now. There's very little inventory. The prices are really high. So it's really hard for an owner of an apartment house to say, hey, my value's gone down, when they're full at higher prices than they normally would get.
Any other questions or comments for Todd? Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to item, pardon me?
Have a good night.
Thank you, you too. Number 9, discussion regarding reestablishing school impact fees. So David, take it away.
Yeah. So this is not the first time some of you have heard this, and we've had this conversation, city and school. Obviously, established in 1995, the reestablishing or having impact fees obviously came to be, and they were in place through 2008, and it was recommended to the city after, conversation with a variety, I would say, developers, et cetera, that because of slightly decreasing enrollment, it did not make sense. And so we had that study that was done, and then it was recommended. And so it phased itself out. And so in 2008, it had a schedule to phase out impact fees. And again, as I look at the future currently in South Burlington, and I think Todd and others appropriately indicate what we would say a surge, our enrollment based on when the assessment was done on the forecasting of enrollment, we've been over those enrollment projections pretty significantly. We have two of our 5 schools above capacity now. That's Orchard and the high school. And so that's an important component to that. But one of the things I think is just fundamentally part of this is that we do have increasing enrollment projections, as well as in school. Again, albeit it was lower than expected, but we do have increasing enrollment. And we also have what we know is a pretty significant number of units or planned units that are coming on or have come on in the city or will be coming on in the city. And so the factor of those two things, just as you would, citywide with water and other assessments, we think it's also a part that should be further studied around where we are. So again, I think the next step would be to dig into this a little bit more, as we did back in 2007 and 8, and look at some of the metrics that are in play, both city and school. I think it kind of behooves us on behalf of the school board and the city council to look at this as we move forward to be a prosperous city for, people to move here, work here, and have their children educated here. I think all of you know that we're in a bit of a predicament, certainly in some of our schools, with the age and the infrastructure, some of which I alluded to earlier. But again, I think this would be an important analysis to redo as we look at the future.
Okay. Comments from council? I mean, I'm not opposed to re-looking at this if it's important. I mean, let's use science and facts to guide our decisions.
Okay. I agree with you. I agree with you, Helen, that it makes sense to look at this. Yeah.
I see Tom nodding, and David, so that's 4 of the council. So is the process then, Kevin and Tim, so we all want to look at this, is it a joint process? Do you hire someone to do that kind of analysis?
Well, it would be a school initiative. The enactment of impact fees itself is a responsibility of the city council, but it would be a school initiative to take their enrollment and the projections for growth in the city, and whether or not it meets the requirements for impact fees. There is somebody local now who has who is an expert on impact fees, who we're working with on our transportation impact fees, and is very good, and can work as a consultant on this if this is the direction the school board wants to go. So, yeah.
So I guess,
And of course, our resources are available too. Paul Connor and our build out resources and the things like that are certainly available, and we would help in any way.
so it sounds like, David, the city is suggesting that you move forward, and Kevin has the name of a, a specialist to help. So I think we'll encourage you to move forward. Tim, you had a comment or?
You just question, Kevin, how many impact fees do we have now, and how are they spread out among new construction? Is it even across all construction, or is it different for commercial versus residential, or?
Well,
You have rec and
we have transportation,
police.
recreation, and recreation impact fees.
Roads, rec, I'm looking at. school
And we
facility.
have impact fees for the police department too, or the building.
Right.
They're all done differently, Tim. But school or for transportation impact fees, they're done differently, each of them, but they both affect residential and commercial, I think, pretty much the same way. School would be different because commercial doesn't send students to schools. Houses send students to school, so that would be different. But transportation, we all use the roads. So some of the projects like FedEx project are very big fees. And part of that's being used to do the intersection at Community Drive and Kimball, to include a traffic light there, which is very expensive. So I don't know if that answered your question or not.
No, it just
School's
might be nice
different.
when we start this process. It might be good to see a layout of all the fees and how they're applied and how they're calculated, and whether or not if a commercial property is recycled into residential property, if those fees still would be applied, like a change of use or something like that. So.
Right, because isn't there a big hotel that's turning into apartments?
Yes.
So that would be a
And-
different use.
I don't know that it would be. It's still residential.
Yeah, but if you're
Well,
renting,
for
as a-
Is a
purposes-
hotel residential? They don't send kids to school. Wouldn't that be isn't that a commercial property?
For purposes of our impact fees,
Oh,
school would be different, I think.
Yeah, again, our fundamental, bringing this up is not to add fees, but to recognize the need and as I said earlier, from 1995 to 2008,
Sure.
impact fees were part of that. And again, because of diminishing enrollment during that period, it came out. But what we're experiencing now, or from 2008 to now, has been increasing enrollment. And as a result, we think that it's worth looking at again. And again, it was part of the impact fee ordinance that was in play back in the mid 90s through 2008. School was one of those components, along with roads, recreation, water line, those types of things back in that. But,
Sure.
yeah.
well, sounds like everyone's willing to have you look into that and come back with the data, and we'll make a decision going forward.
Yeah, it's good to know there's another name because, Michael Munson and Dick Heaps probably aren't doing this anymore.
They're not.
I'll check in with you, Kevin, to get a name. Thanks.
Okay, great. Okay, item 10, COVID-19 update for schools and cities. Kevin, do you want to do the city part?
Yeah, I
Is
think
there an update?
pretty much steady as she goes, so to speak. We did have an incident where we had up to 9 firefighters and police officers who were possibly exposed to somebody with C19, but that person's test we just found out was negative. So our firefighters and police are back on their normal shifts, or will be.
Great.
But it just opened our eyes to the need to follow protocols. In this case, an individual did not follow the protocols, and this is what resulted. Tom and I feel very fortunate that this was the first incident of this nature to affect the city employees. Fortunately, it turned out well, but we are going to reemphasize to our entire team the need to follow the governor's directives and to be careful. That being said, all of our staff that had been furloughed, as Tom had mentioned earlier in the budget discussion, came back on August 3rd. We have a couple of people working from home on their computers, but besides that, we're all back in our offices and we're all practicing safe distancing and masks in the offices. So we got behind on a number of public works projects, as you might imagine. Things like potholes and all, they accumulate over the winter, and it takes a while to catch up, and line striping and those sorts of things. But we're getting back to our normal. So we're very cautious, I have to say, very optimistic about the news that Pfizer has a effective vaccine at phase 3, with what I've heard is a possible distribution of for up to 25 million people before the end of the year. We're hoping that's first responders, of course, because obviously we need those folks in place. We're hoping they're in that group. So anyway, any questions about that?
Nope.
Okay, thanks.
David? School
Yeah,
update?
Yeah, I'll give you a quick update. It could be a very long one, but it won't be. And I'll ask Amity in just a second to just do a quick overview of what we spent to date. And so in general, obviously, really proud of our community, South Burlington, parents, guardians, and students, most of all, and adhering to what I would say a very different environment. We obviously are guided by, the health department folks as you are, but trying to carry on essential functions in education, first in a fully remote from March to June, and what that does to your system of wanting to have children in person when you can't, to then walking into the start of the school year in a hybrid. We started out in a hybrid version, 2 days on, and then the students obviously flip-flop. So 2 cohorts, 2 days on, and the 1 day in the middle was to do some connected activities, but really to allow the building to rest and be cleaned so that we could cut down on infections. So far, so good. It seems to be working. We do have, we've had about 3 staff members currently amongst 5 of our schools. So 3 in total who have come down with it. None of it has come from the school, but have come individuals who've been exposed and have tested positive. I have to say the Department of Health and the contact tracers have done an excellent job. So they come on very quickly. Our staff develop line lists where you were, who was with you, students, all of those locations, all the way to buses and activity, and determine whether you were a close contact to an individual that was exposed. In most cases, we've had an exposed individual, but has only had developed close contact with about 4 or 5 other individuals in our community, our school community. So a real testament to our students and staff's adherence to the standard. I think to what Kevin and Tom have said too, but for us, it's masking, physically distancing, hand washing, dividers, air filtration, as I said, both in our big system air filtration and these portable devices that we have that are turning the air and filtering the air and purifying. And then, all of the health screening requirements that we have to do daily with every student, I think has been attributed to some of those conditions. And we hope that stays there. That is not without some expenses, and I want to let Amity just give you a quick overview of what we spent in 20. So we went March to June, and then we've obviously started July 1 to where we are today. So anyway, and we're not sure what will happen after December 31. We're not quite certain. So Amity, go ahead and give a quick overview of what we spent.
Sure. So from the March through June in the general fund expenses, we had 298,784 of COVID related for PPE, additional staff that might have needed to be hired, but mostly PPE and supplies for classrooms to ready ourselves for the school year. As staffing wasn't, at that point, we were not in school, so we were doing all remote learning. We didn't have to hire additional substitutes or, monitors for health screenings, et cetera. Those staff salaries were mandated by the governor for us to cover as if they were at work, even if they were not at work. So we, as a district, have actually applied for this CARES Act fund to cover even budgeted expenses. So that might actually save a little bit in the education fund, because they'll use the CARES money to supplement the ed fund money to hopefully bring down the deficit that is expected within the ed fund dollars. So that was for FY20. FY21 through October 31st, we have spent $515,786 on COVID related expenditures, and that includes staffing, substitutes. We've got teachers for the VTVLC program, the PPE and dividers, et cetera, that we had to install, upgrades to the nurses' offices to have quarantine rooms. So all of those are in our application for the CRF funds from the Agency of Education. We still have yet to see the actual grant award. As of, sorry, today's Monday. So as of last week, we did hear from the Agency of Education that the final grant applications were being submitted. So that means we should be hearing anytime about what our likelihood of reimbursement is as time frame goes. It does seem, as David had mentioned, there will be, or maybe it was Martin, I'm sorry, that there will be enough funding to cover all of what we, as all districts around Vermont, have asked for. We did have to estimate through December 31 what we thought we'd be spending on COVID. That's a really tough number to know, because we have no idea what might be coming down the pike even in this last couple of months. But we've done our best, and we have put in for, I think, between the March and December timeframe, over 1.6 million in what we anticipate for expenditures for COVID related items and staffing. And we also did receive final approval from the Efficiency Vermont that we have grant funding to cover the expenses that we endured for purchasing the EnviroClean's air purifiers for each classroom and offices for the district all around every school, as well as the upgraded filters, the MERV V13 filters for our ventilation system. And there were some exhaust fans at some of our schools that did need to be replaced or upgraded to also meet standards. So that total was 203,000, a little over 203,000 from Efficiency Vermont that we will also have as grant funds. And as David mentioned, we did get our food service program did receive funding for summer and even during June meal delivery expenditures that we endured for our buses being on the roads to deliver students, or not even just students, but all children in the city of South Burlington from the birth to age 18 were eligible for lunch and breakfast to be served to them. And so we deliver those meals. So there was costs associated with packaging and delivering and distribution of those meals. So we did receive a grant approval, and we've applied for those funds, and that should be anytime received now. So, and that was about a $500,000 expenditure between June and August. So that's pretty much where we're at with COVID at this point in time. It still seems to be kind of a moving target. We still don't have final dates on monies, but we're getting there slowly but surely.
Thank you, Amity. So yeah, that's where we are with COVID. And again, every day is a new day.
Yeah.
We hope, we hope things stay smooth.
Great. I just want to give a call out to the city clerk's office too. And I know Tim and I worked at the polls, but the whole process, and I'm assuming all of you voted. But the system at the polls was better than the summer, and I think we had no incidents that I'm aware of at Tuttle Middle School for 7-2 and 7-3. And so I think it's another testament to sort of how Vermont does things and how our community, we had just an enormous number of volunteers to work the polls. So, you really we had a person opening the door at Tuttle. So no one had to, when they exited, so no one, and came in, so no one had to touch the handle. So it was really good. Final item is capital projects update and for the TIF. So Kevin, do you have some thinking?
Yeah, I just wanted to give some level of notice. We have not, from the administration, we have not talked to the council about this in detail, but there is a possibility of 2 items we may be seeking, for which we may be seeking TIF approval in March. One being the extension of Garden Street, the other being the possibility of connecting the Market Street area to the city center park, a walking facility, a pedestrian facility to do that. These are not large projects, probably combined well under $3 million, but the TIF clock is ticking. We're very pleased, and Martin's on the line here. I think I want to express my appreciation to Martin and the rest of the legislature for extending the TIF, the eligibility to incur debt for TIF projects for 1 year. Nonetheless, because of the lag in time it takes to get on the bond schedule for the Vermont Bond Bank, it's time we will need. But we'll be talking to the council probably in December about the possibility of going to the voters with these 2 TIF projects. Again, pretty small, both of them 100% TIF eligible.
Okay. Is there any other business?
Yeah, I have one just quick announcement, and I wanted to just let the steering committee know, the board knows, but Amity Denton, our longtime 31-year employee, will be leaving us. And she's on right now, so I just wanted to give a moment of appreciation to her for her 31 years. It doesn't seem possible, but for her good work, and we're going to miss her. And we wish her the best. I just wanted you to know that. Thank you, Amity.
Congratulations, Amity.
Yeah.
Time flies, man.
Thank you.
Tom Chittenden, an item?
Similar to how you applauded the way the polls were conducted in this pandemic, I just, as a parent that drops kids off to 2 of the schools, the teachers, the staff, and the school district is doing a phenomenal job with all of your processes and controls, greeting us, the principal outside every morning, making sure it's safe, and the police officers also coordinating. And after school, it's just, you guys are doing a phenomenal job through extremely challenging times. So thank you for everything you're doing.
Thanks, Tom. I'll pass that on.
And ditto from another parent. Yes, very
Here.
much.
And we certainly should congratulate the 2 legislators who were reelected. Neither of them really had a whole lot of competition, I guess. And Tom, you did extremely well for first time out of the block. So I guess having the same name as the county helps, huh?
I'll take what I can get.
They've heard it somewhere, huh?
He's the first governor.
So, is there any other business? All right, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn, and we determine that the next meeting is in January, whatever the date is, like the 20th or something. Okay, so we have a motion to adjourn, a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, thumbs up. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Melissa,
everybody. Have a good
I
night.
hope you are back in Vermont soon.
What?